מזבח חודש בציון תוכין ויואל אז ראש חודש נעלה עליו מזבח חודש בציון תוכין ויואל אז ראש חודש נעלה עליו מזבח חודש בציון
Hello everyone, in honor of Shabbat Mevarchin, I want to ask a very simple question. Why do we announce when Rosh Chodesh is? As part of Shabbat Mevarchin's ritual, we say Rosh Chodesh is going to be this Monday. Why do we say that? We have a calendar, we have a Google Calendar. Why is it so important to announce it in shul? It's a very ancient minhag. The Abu Draham says, Shabbos Kodem Rosh Chodesh, Achar Kriyata Haftara Kodem Ashrei. Literally, Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh, after the Haftarah, before we say Ashrei, Machriz, Shliach, Tzibur, Umodia Lakahal, Be'ize Yom Yachul Rosh Chodesh. The Chazan gets up and tells everyone which day in this coming week will be Rosh Chodesh. Why? So the Yereim, better known as the Re'im, Rav Eliezer from Mintz, lived in the 12th century. He's one of the Baalei HaTosfos. He's a Talmud of Rabbeinu Tam and the Rashbam on the one hand, and he is the Rav of many of the Baalei Tosfos, such as the Ravya and later the Rokeach. He comes along and says that we tell everyone when Rosh Chodesh is, Lahagid la'olam Rosh Chodesh ulehizaher bo uvitalui bo. In order to be careful with it and what you're supposed to do on it. In other words, we announce it in order to tell people, hey, this week is Rosh Chodesh. Remember, davening might be a little earlier, or it might take longer. There's a Hallel, there's a Musaf. You better say Ya'aleh V'yavo. That's the reason we say it. That's basically what the Magen Avraham quotes in the name of the Yereim. And just in case you think his particular formulation is a little amorphic, the Machzor Vitri from the Beis Medrash of Rashi, of Simcha from a place called Vitri, he comes along and says that the reason we do it, mipnei takanat hamohadot, v'takanat tfilat hamusafim, v'halel, ulevatel bahem anashim, mimelacha. The reason we do it is in order for people to know this coming Monday, say, people have to A, daven musaf, B, daven halel, and C, women shouldn't do malacha as per their minhag. And just in case you think this is just for Rosh Chodesh, he goes on to say, when there's a fast day that week, then you're supposed to announce in shul, Tzom ploni, Yom ploni, Zeh Haba Aleinu, Ya'avchenu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lalanu, L'chol Yisrael L'sasanu L'simcha, that there's a fast day this week. Everyone should be ready, and Be'ezrat Hashem, if it's one of the 4 fast days for the destruction of the temple, God will change it to a holiday. So in a word, we announce it on Shabbat Mevarchin in order to remind people this week is Rosh Chodesh, and there's different rules and regulations, even though it's a regular weekday. There's Hallel, there's Musaf, there's Ya'aleh V'yavo, and women have a custom not to do Melacha. There's another point of view, and that is the Or Zarua. Again, we're talking about one of the Rishonim, Rav Yitzchak bar Rabbi Moshe from Vienna, his years 1180 to 1250. He was a Talmud of the Ravya and many of the Baalei HaTosfos. He was the Rebbe of the Maharam Mirutenberg, who was the Rebbe of the Rosh, the Hagahot Maimoniot, and the Mordechai, and many of the Achrone Baalei HaTosfos. He comes along and says this is not the reason, but rather it's a Hachrosa be'alma shetikun Rabotenu, la'achris be'tzibur b'lashon bracha, שידעו מתי יהיה ראש חודש ויזהרו בכל הלכות החודש. In a word, it's not for Rosh Chodesh per se. People will come to shul, they'll know that day. There's Hallel, there's Musaf, Ya'aleh V'yavo, Azoi. That's a side issue. The most important issue is to know this is the month of, say, Nisan. Pesach is going to happen. You better start preparing. Or this month is the month of Shvat. There's Tu B'Shvat. Very important date for Trumot and Masrot and many other things. So therefore, it's not so much for the Rosh Chodesh per se. It's for all the holidays and the special things that happen that month. In a word, the Mishnah Berurah, when he sums it up, he brings both points of view. He comes along and says, Shemodi'im laha olam matay yachol Rosh Chodesh, to tell everyone when Rosh Chodesh is, so you'll know to say Musaf and Hallel and Yarev Yavo, and the women shouldn't do malacha if that's their custom. And number two, the Yizaharu b'chol ilchot HaChodesh, to be careful with all the rules and regulations of that particular month. Let's chop an nafkamina. What about a month that's barren of any holidays? Chodesh Cheshvan. According to the Or Zarua, I'm not so sure why you have to go ahead and make a big deal at a Shabbat Mevarchin, but according to the Yereim, the Machzor Vitri, and the Magen Avraham, I definitely know why, because it makes no difference to me. If there's a Rosh Chodesh on the calendar, you got to tell the people to remind them that Monday there's Hallel Musaf, Yarev Yavo, and the women shouldn't do malacha. Number two, it's the month of Tishrei. We have an ancient minhag that's quoted in many poskim, such as the Magen Avraham, that says, Chutz milifnei Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. That particular Rosh Chodesh is also Rosh Hashanah. People are going to be using a machzer. We're not so worried they're going to forget Ya'aleh V'yavo. As a matter of fact, the whole davening changes. And therefore, says the Aruch HaShulchan, that's the real reason why we don't have benching of Rosh Chodesh before Tishrei. Because usually Rosh Chodesh is a forgotten holiday. It's a regular weekday. But this particular month coming up, Rosh Chodesh is going to be Rosh Hashanah. No one's going to forget about that. And therefore, there's no reason to remind them. On the other hand, if the Or Zarua is correct, to remind them of all the halachos of the month, there's no month that's more saturated with holidays than Tishrei. So maybe then we should make an ultra hachraza that Rosh Chodesh is coming. Therefore, it's very questionable, according to the Or Zarua, why is it that we don't bench Rosh Chodesh before Tishrei? That is the month with the most halachos possible. 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, 1 day of Yom Kippur, 7 days of Sukkot, 1 day of Shmini Atzeret, all the laws of Chol HaMoed, all the laws of Sukkot, the laws of Lulav, so much to be careful about. Indeed, maybe the reason is there's like a Gzeirat HaKatov. We have a pasuk that says we try to cover up that Rosh Chodesh is coming, that Rosh Hashanah is coming for various reasons. No, it's not from the Torah, it's from the Ketuvim, from Tehillim, Kesel Yom Chagenu. That's the reason why not. Outside of that, it would have been the month with the biggest benching of Rosh Chodesh. That's the reason that the Magen Avraham gives. And the Mishnah Berurah indeed says the same thing. To sum up, we have this ancient minhag to tell everyone when Rosh Chodesh is, either because to remind them Rosh Chodesh is coming this week, remember, Yarev Yavo, Hallel, Musaf, women have a minhag not to do melacha, or to remind them of the halachos pertaining to that month. If it's Shvat, there's a Tu B'Shvat. If it's Adar, it's Purim, etc. Wishing everyone a good Shabbos and a good Chodesh.